Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson, and I am super excited today to have David Jones of Blazing Onion Restaurant Group on with us today. And David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Hey, well, thank you for coming on and joining us and being open to sharing kind of your story and your experiences with me and my listeners. We're always looking for advice and ideas and strategies and just conversation in and around, running a successful restaurant. And you guys you've been able to do it and you've grown the business. So without going further and giving away all your secrets, I'll just ask you if you mind sharing a little bit with our audience about what Blazing Onion's all about.
Sure. There won't be any secrets, but sure. We started in 2007. And basically was me trying to get my wife to quit her job and work with me. And she was the controller at Philips warranty department at that time, and kind of challenged me and said, well, if you open another business, maybe I will. And so I'd been, driving by this space that was available for about a year and decided to take her up on the challenge and met with the landlord. And what he wanted and what we wanted were aligned pretty good, almost as if it was meant to be. And it was the largest lease I had ever seen in my life, because we do, at that point, we had just done Subways. And we both agreed that, we weren't ready, but when will we ever be ready? So let's just do it. So we took all these drawings and ideas we had in a folder and opened our first Blazing Onion restaurant, and it was ridiculously busy. We weren't ready for it. The equipment wasn't ready for it more than anything else. And we weren't ready in our kitchen, and it was a disaster. It was a tier creating disaster that thought maybe we had put ourselves out of business with, this decision that we had done. And somewhere in there during all this craziness, we got together and decided we're both leaders and there's no way this is going to beat us. And so we divided up our 30 problems, which we had exactly 30. She took 15 and I took 15. And it took about 6 weeks, and we had turned it around and started getting our first compliments. And then 8 months later, we got this crazy idea that we should do another one. And so we did another one, and that was during the recession. So that was hard to get loans. So we had to fight the banks to get a loan. And then 8 months after that, we decided to do a third one, and basically went through the same process, except a little bit worse with the banks. And that third one was what launched us. And so since then, we became a viable brand and figured out our size and figured out our model and figured out everything. But it pretty much after the third one that all happened. And now we're at 8.
Wow. Yeah, it's a great story. And I'd looked through my notes earlier today, and I completely forgot about the Subway piece that you guys had that experience. And as Blazing Onion, is it I believe you used the words, wait a minute, let me go find the words you used when you told me before about the concept.
I used the word hybrid because we're a fast casual restaurant and a full service sports lounge or full service whiskey bar. So it's not something anybody's expecting. You come in and it looks, warm and welcome, and you're not expecting us to take your order in the lobby, but that's what we do on the restaurant side. And then you seat yourself in the bar. So sometimes it takes the customer a little bit used to what we're trying to accomplish, but what we're trying to accomplish is service on demand in the restaurant. And so that's why we do what we do. And but that's what I call us a hybrid.
Yeah. You had mentioned, you had teased me and said you had a different kind of model, and that definitely sounds a little bit different. So just for me to understand, so your guests come into a lobby kind of area and you take their orders there for the food, right?
Right. So what Laura and I wanted was to create something where someone could go someplace nice on a date night, but control their own service model. So to do that, to give the whole team responsibility for the customer actually has to start the ordering process in the lobby, and then the restaurant is your assigned server, not a person. So you come in, you order in the lobby, you can order your drinks there. You can bypass all that and just go directly in the lounge also if you prefer that. But when you do order in the lobby, your food is already started while you're getting your beverages at the Freestyle machine. And so the process to get your food can be a little bit quicker. And then you also have service buttons on your table that you can push for service, and you can push for your check. So you can do either one. So you can leave your check open or closed at the register. And then every time you need something that we didn't anticipate, we try to anticipate everything. But if we didn't anticipate it and you push the button, because we served you 4 napkins, but you really want 8 because you didn't realize how sloppy the burgers were or something, then we'll come right back with those napkins or more sauce or whatever it is that you need, including drinks from the bar, dessert, whatever you need. So it's kind of a fast casual plus.
Yeah, that's what you said before, fast casual plus. That's what I had written in my notes, and I like that. And you know what? I've seen a trend, and I'm sure you had too, of kind of this varying service model where customers or patrons could kind of pick their own way of being serviced, whether they wanted more of a full service experience or more of a self-service experience. So had you seen that concept before, or was that just kind of the idea you guys had from the get-go?
Well, Panera has that. That's probably the biggest player that has that concept. They do the pager at the table that you take to your table, and then it senses where it knows where you are because it communicates to the tabletop, and they deliver your food to the table. We were already working on it before Panera came out with that, with our own stuff, but we were doing it through signs because the technology company I'd tried to get in partnership with went out of business before we actually got it implemented. So we were doing it very old fashioned with signs from an idea that we got at Bubba Gump's, where they had a service sign out that you put up a red stop sign if you needed service and your server wasn't around. So we did kind of that same similar concept where, we had these big red stop signs that you put up on the table for service, and that has since morphed into a call pod system, which use summon service.
I like that. It reminds me of just trying to think out loud. It's almost like at the hospital, you got the little button on the bed. When you need a nurse, you just press it, and it's kind of the same concept. And
we don't give you morphine, but yes, similar.
Now, if you could, you might be able to create some margin on that piece of business.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is that's really interesting. I love that idea, and I think that that hybrid model has been something that more and more operators have gone to, and with technology being where it is. I know we talked before. We had a big conversation about technology, so I'm just going to segue out of character a little bit, but segue to that. You mentioned you had tried to partner with a technology company that went out on you, but tell me a little about the tech in the business, because I thought that was really, really interesting, all the different things that you were doing and looking to do in the future.
Right now, we're looking to do a lot of things, but the issue with being an 8-unit operation is that the people that will deal with you are usually working on investment, and so their investors could pull out at any moment. So doing an interview with them to hope that they're going to be around for a while, or trying to get us to 50 units where we can work with all kinds of people, are our two challenges. So in the meantime, I do my best to vet a company and see how long I think they're going to be around. But it is honestly, at 8 units, it is really a crapshoot on whether they're going to still be there by the time you get it done. And one of the reasons why is because I'm very picky about what our model is to our customers. I don't want just a cookie cutter piece of technology just to have technology. I want something that actually benefits my customers. And so, I'm very outspoken about the direction that it goes in, and I need a company that's willing to listen and work with me on that. And that's not that easy to find. So we have had relationships with two different companies that one got bought out because a competitor didn't like the competition, and so they just bought them out and crushed them. And then another one just caved in itself. So that's happened to us twice. So right now we're using CallPod, which lets you summon service, and we're working on apps that could give our customers enhanced service at the table side. We have takeout and delivery, but we would like to have something that would help them at table side to make their transactions faster and more seamless for those that choose not to have to order in the lobby.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not all that familiar with CallPod, but I just made a note of that. And for our listeners out there, it sounds like a nice piece of technology. I'm going to check that out myself, but and try to learn.
It's usually used for hotels and for bars for getting the person's attention to get another drink where maybe you're having a hard time getting their attention. We use it differently than everybody else, just like everything else we do. So in our system, it pages all of us, so up to 5 people. And in its original format, it pages the server assigned to you. So we had them do an alteration for us to page everybody because the team is your server, not a person.
Yeah, you got more of a team service philosophy, and not to segue again, I want to stay on technology, but do you guys do tip pooling to kind of promote that multiple service model?
Yeah, we've done tip pooling since we started. So we have 2 different systems because we're a full service bar and we're a fast casual restaurant. So our system in the bar is set up like a typical bar. Bartenders get their tips, cocktail servers get their tips. The servers in the bar tip out to the bartender. If we have a bar back, they tip out to the bartender. It's very typical service model in there for any full service restaurant with a bar. However, in the restaurant, all the tips are shared by everybody with the exception of the servers in the bar. So the bartender gets a small percentage of it, the back of the house gets a percentage of it, and the front of the house gets a percentage of it. That's all done typically on how you would do it, a pooling process. But we've done that since the very beginning because we don't have an assigned person to your table. So we've been able to do that from the beginning.
Yeah, I like that, and it sounds like it might be a little more administrative on you and your team, but is it more of a burden on the administrative side to have those 2 systems operating?
Only setting it up. Once we get it set up, it works pretty seamless. We do all that in-house, and I don't look at the sheets that my wife uses or her team uses for any of that. But I assume that's just Excel or something like that they're using to do it. So.
To be able to keep track and all that. We had a good conversation about mobile apps and online ordering and kind of some different takes on that. Do you mind sharing with our listeners, what you're doing on that front?
Well, we're doing our stuff through Toast right now. So there's some things I'm still looking for. I'm looking for a better loyalty program. So I'm out there pounding the pavement for that. I'm not satisfied with where I'm at with Toast right now on the loyalty piece of it. But as far as the ordering, they do a great job. There might be some changes that we do with our third-party delivery system. We're looking at some offers to change up and maybe do exclusivities that will be a less percentage. So we're looking at that right now. As far as probably the biggest thing I'd like to do is I'd like to work on an ordering process that allows loyalty. And so I will add that as soon as I find a company that I think is the right one.
And how about that conversation we had about the the whole the pickup or takeout piece? We had talked about the locker idea. Has that changed in the last few weeks, or are you kind of still in the same place with that?
I believe that the company I'm working with is hoping to launch something in May. So nothing has changed since our conversation. But basically, what I'm working with them on, and this is Apex, APEX, that I'm working with. They already do food lockers inside the restaurant. So the backs, I believe, are open and you throw the food in there, or you don't throw it in, but you put the food in there and the customer gets a text message, their food is ready, and they scan it with their phone and it opens up their locker with the food. What I have proposed to them, and they were actually working on it when I talked to them about it, was doing something where the locker itself is actually in your outdoor window space. So you would put the food in from the inside. The outside is protected from the weather, but it's the same process, except the customer doesn't have to come inside. Basically, what that would replace is curbside for a lot of restaurants that maybe don't have the staff to do curbside. And the reason why that's an issue is because curbside is kind of an on-demand process. So those that don't have a lot of staff hanging around don't have staff just assigned to do curbside because they can't afford it, because maybe their volumes aren't there, or whatever it may be that is their obstacle. And curbside is something you have to do on demand. So the customer says, I'm here, you have to respond right then. While a locker, you could have that food in right when it's done, and the customer doesn't have to wait. They've already got the text, they know their food is done, they can just go get it and not enter the building, stay outside. So they're getting the comfort of curbside without having to enter the building. So anyway, that's what I'm looking at. I'm hoping to have something up and running in probably September. And the reason I say that is because to get a new store built and to get it done, September would be about the earliest I think I can launch right now, with all the different obstacles we have with supply chain and getting contractors and everything else that you need to finish a lease.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because challenges are kind of the area we like to spend a few minutes on to try to share things that we're all going through with our listeners, and hoping to give them some ideas or something to think about anyway to help them solve some of their problems. You mentioned staffing, of course, was a biggie. So have you guys been able to minimize, I guess, the challenge with staffing with any any creative programs or pay plans or anything like that? Or are you just fighting tooth and nail like everybody else to recruit and retain people?
We're fighting tooth and nail. It's a little bit better. I think if we go back to November, it was hard to even get someone to show up for an interview.
Yeah.
You had a lot of people applying, but getting someone to actually show up for the interview was rough. And then if you didn't notice that they had a lot of vacancy in the year 2021, they really didn't seem to be interested in actually taking a job. So they were applying for maybe unemployment or for other reasons, but just to get someone in. Now, what's changed is there's more people actually coming in for the interviews right now. And so we're hoping that we start realizing some change on that. But it went from employees to managers for us. So it started with employees, and now it's our management staff. That's the one we're fighting to keep and retain. And that's because they're all burnt out from the staffing issues of all the employees. So now it's just kind of going uphill and has reached our managers. So I'm trying to have closer contact with my managers, have one-on-ones, we've always had an open door policy. So trying to get them to know they can reach out and talk to us and try to be a good employer. And, that's what we're working on right now. So I'm hoping we get some changes that are positive, but I don't see it right now. It's just working hard.
Yeah, that's definitely been a major challenge and obstacle for many, especially when you're in a growth mode, kind of like you guys are, and expanding and looking to add business. It's really difficult to do from a staffing standpoint. And, a lot of companies, a lot of restaurants have done different things, from, you can't always pay your way out, and I think that's the one thing we've learned is that no matter how much you are paying, you still have trouble getting people. So, with 8 units, you've got a big staff. And by the way, are all the units company owned, or are you guys franchising?
We are, we have the franchise paperwork done. However, they are all company owned right now. And the reason why we're not franchising actively right now is because I want a smaller model first. So I'm looking for 2 sites to do a smaller model in. That might be easier for a franchisee to run. But I need to make sure they're profitable first. We have 4 Subways active right now, and we have no Big Chickens, but we are the Pacific Northwest Big Chicken franchisor, or franchisee, sorry. They wouldn't want me calling myself a franchisor. We are the franchisee in the Pacific Northwest, and so we're looking to grow that brand too. So again, more challenges with supply chain and with employees.
Yeah, is that the Shack? Is Shack involved in Big Chicken?
Yes, he's the founder of Big Chicken, and his partners are 2 companies that are chef driven, and so it's a pretty good organization to be working with.
Yeah, that's exciting to kind of see that getting off the ground. But I didn't mean to digress again off onto another tangent, which I seem to be doing quite frequently today. Because we were talking about staffing and those challenges around that and things that you're doing to try to retain people. I hadn't heard people really say that there was a difference between staffing the restaurant and then the management employees becoming more of an issue today. So that's interesting. And what do you do? I mean, you've got a good number of employees in your unit. So are you doing any additional training, any management development or leadership development with the current staff to try to get them ready to take on new roles?
Well, the biggest thing always for a restaurant, I believe, is always going to be atmosphere. Money attracts people, but atmosphere keeps them. And then when you're dealing with staffing issues, you realize that people are going to get burnt out, and atmosphere is going to be the first thing to take a hit. So Lori and I have to be on everything and try to keep that from happening, try to anticipate what's going on, try to read tone in manager reports when they give their reports for the week, try to read tone in there and react to anything that we think we need to react to, and have more meetings with them and make sure that they feel supported. We already have a 45-hour work week. We've been doing that since the beginning, and trying to maintain that during all this, that's a challenge. I've had to go in and come back from a vacation and come back and actually run a store for a couple of days to give my GM some days off. So, whatever it takes to try to get us to a spot to where the staffing thing eases down and we can get our GMs back on controlling the atmosphere better without feeling like Fred Flintstone kind of, running their wheels, but not moving anywhere, kind of like you see in the cartoon.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how so many people feel. And let me ask you, are the Blazing Onion stores, are they all, or I guess all your restaurants, are they all geographically close together, or are you spread out?
They're 84 miles from the furthest points. So that's actually pretty close together.
Yeah.
They're all in the same region.
Yeah. That was probably the better word that I was looking for. And is your intention to kind of broaden that over time, or are you going to try to stick closely into that kind of single region area?
I think I always wanted to do 10 in a market and then start over in a new market where I could do 1 to 3 as fast as possible to get some chemistry and I'm not thinking of the word, but getting that synergy right in a spot, to get 3 as quickly as possible. So I'm actually looking at other markets right now. thinking about that, but I have to stay focused on the agenda at hand. And the agenda at hand right now is to create 2 smaller units and see if we can create a profitable unit that would be great franchise. And so I need to do that first. And those should probably be around here where I have the other stores. And then the second thing that I'm working on big is this big chicken concept. I want to get it off and running and get it to where it has its own feet. And it can get moving. And then at that, probably the third thing would then be to create a new market for the Blazing Onion and moving from there.
Got it. Got it. Well, you got a lot on your plate, my friend.
I do, and you can tell I'm getting older every day. So,
well,
get moving.
I tell you what, you and Lori are going to be. You probably live forever if you continue to work that hard. Though you'll have so much going on, you won't have time to get sick or croak.
Just long enough to see my grandkids get married and have children and all that kind of stuff. That's all. That's all I need.
That's exactly right. And I mean, it's just really, the whole point of our show is to find people like yourself and Lori who've created and built up, a successful growing enterprise. And I don't even know how to ask this question specifically, but what I'm trying to get at is, I guess more of, how did you know, like from store 1 to store 2 to, unit 3, how did you know when you were ready to take the next step? Can you remember that far back first?
No, I remember. So at Subway, the first store I took on didn't make hardly any money. In fact, it had lost money the year before I bought it. So, and I knew that going in. What I didn't know was I was buying the dead last store in the entire Pacific Northwest at the time.
That's right.
So it took me a full 3 years to turn that around to where it was making decent money. So on year 2, my wife told me I had to get a job, and I had already tasted the sweet life of working for myself and I did not want to do that. And so I found my brother to invest the money with me, and we opened number 2. So our growth there was because Fred DeLuca used to always say, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so I had that in my head, and I couldn't make it on one Subway. It just didn't make enough money. I had to have more Subways. So when we started the Blazing Onion, which was 10 years later, that growth thought was already stuck in my DNA. That was already there. So as soon as we had a successful store, we already knew we were moving forward. And then with each concept, it's about which one tells you that you did it, which one lets you know that this is going to work, and this is how I need to move forward. For us at Subway, that was our second unit, which was way busier than our first unit and made money right off the bat. And for us at the Blazing Onion, it was our third unit. So if I would have slowed down with 1 and 2, where I was just making mediocre money, not really that much money, if I would have slowed down with that, that's how we would have died. We would have just been done. But because we had that growth, go, learn, and do it better, and got to that third model where we had learned so much from model 1 and 2, and we didn't let ourselves breathe because we had waited 8 months. We didn't let ourselves breathe to even capture in that how overwhelming this all was, to not even let that even get into our focus. And we did that third one, and it worked out so well. So I hope that answers the questions. They're both a little bit different with the 2 concepts.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that it was number 2 in Subway, number 3 for Blazing Onion, and it's just interesting to me how some people are all about, okay, make one almost perfect before you go to the next one, and then go to the next one. But your philosophy or your process, you and Lori's process was a little bit different. You're like, okay, let's just blow this thing out and get it to scale up, and then figure out, make improvements as we go, and until you finally get it. So 2 very interesting ways of going about it, and both can be successful. I guess it just depends on what's in your DNA.
I think if you're a chef and you're doing, a lot of one-offs, you're doing, maybe 8 different one-off restaurants, then that perfection thing is what you're looking for, and that's what you're doing. For me, I would not sell us short of not trying for perfection. We tried for perfection. We just failed on store one, pretty large. It was our first one. We knew we weren't ready. I mean, who can put a bunch of ideas in a manila folder and then suddenly make them all work perfect? Someone who probably has a lot more experience in our Subway experience and my Denny's experience and Wendy's experience probably would take something a little bit more than that. So we did what we thought was perfect. It didn't work. We did store number two. It worked perfectly, but it wasn't high profit at the beginning because it was in an area that was going to grow, not growing yet. So we started at $1.2 million a year. This year, we're going to do about 2.8 million in that same location. So so it got there. It just didn't start there. Store number three started there, but we had learned stuff, getting to that point.
Yeah. Experience is can be expensive, but pays off if you stick with it and you continue to innovate and grow. And as we talked about earlier, you're really seem to have a lot of focus on the technology space, which I think is fantastic today, because innovation and technology are keys to creating adaptable businesses that can scale. And so I love what you're doing. It all looks like it's working beautifully, and can't wait to see what Big Chicken does. I've never had the not as familiar with that brand. I've heard, of course, the Shack and all that, but not as familiar with it. But let me ask you one more question about Blazing Onion. Are all those locations, do you build them, or are you taking space and renovating?
I have not taken space and renovated yet. I'm very open to that, but that just hasn't been. The few spaces I looked at were very intimidating with the dirt that was already there, the grime.
Yeah.
And the layouts needed a lot of changes, so I never ended up pulling the trigger on them. But I am interested in that. I save money on a lot of stuff when I do that way, so I am interested in that. I just haven't found the right location to do that yet.
Yeah, it's that's another classic question when you're looking to start up. Do you build? Do you take a current space and fix it up, or what?
You have to know if that's the space failed or it's not available. So it failed. So you have to look at it, and I mean, it takes a lot more measurement to do it. You have to look at it and go, did it fail because of its operation? Did it fail because of its location? Or was it just bad circumstance? Or, is it a good location otherwise? You have to really weigh that out too, because just taking the space doesn't mean you're going to suddenly succeed. You can, but it doesn't mean that. So you have to really spend a little bit more energy on that piece of it.
Yeah, and that's a great point for all of our would-be restaurateurs that are listening. When you're looking at spaces and you start looking on the cheap, a lot of times there's restaurant spaces I know in my town that have just been year after year. There's something different, and they never seem to make it. So from what you just said, I'm thinking, I'd be looking at that really heavily. It's probably cheap to get, but do you want it? As for me, I'd be hesitant. I think if I've seen, 5 or 6 or 7 different restaurants come and go over the last 10 years, I'm thinking it's got to be something to do with the location.
Well, I'm thinking, in our Snohomish location, our store number 2, it does tremendous right now. But I've noticed that the other restaurants around it sometimes struggle. They don't get on their feet like we did. And I think possibly that's because when we came in, we just made such a big impact at the beginning because there was no competition.
Yeah.
And then what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that you're strong enough with your food and your service that when competition comes, your customers go try the competition, but they come back. And so you have to put a ton of emphasis on that because the competition has been coming. Competition has been coming. We opened that one in 2008. So the competition has been coming for years, and we keep doing better. And one of the reasons we keep doing better is because we make sure that our customers come back after trying the competition.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And it sounds like and you're talking about the second unit where you've pretty much more than doubled.
Right.
You're going to get to 2.6 or 2.2, whatever that number was you mentioned earlier. So that's a really good point. And that's your service delivery and your food quality. As long as you're meeting the expectations and exceeding them in some cases, customers will come back.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, how badly is the food shortage deal, impacting you guys and cost? Have you been able to mitigate some of that with technology or and other ways that you've been able to kind of work through that in the last year and a half?
I No.
There's no good answer, is there?
What I will say is we have a strong relationship with our vendors. So in the case of Impossible Foods, when they ran out of patties, which they ran out of sometime during the whole COVID crisis, they ran out of patties. They reached out to us and asked if we would take the ground meat, the ground Impossible meat, and make our own patties because they wanted us to. We had been such a good customer with our volumes, and we were able to actually do that. So we never went. Our supply chain never stopped with them because of that. So there's been some things that have happened because we have strong relationships with our supply chain. With US Foods, I was talking to them way before the pandemic had actually crushed, when it was just rumors of it going to hit us, and trying to help them with things that they could do to make sure they had gloves in their supply chain and sanitizer in their supply chain, and things that I don't think that they had been talking about, that they needed to start getting stockpiles up and get going on. And so the president, I believe it was the president, and I had a good conversation about it. And they were working on that stuff. They started bringing in advisors to have meetings once a month, which was one of the suggestions that I had, was that they really get out there and talk to the people out in the field. I think that started out with a great start to everything. Unfortunately, I think that at some point it got overwhelming even for them on what to do next, because they were having so many problems now with drivers and other things like that. So I think that ended up catching up to them, but it did make the start of it better for us than it was for a lot of other people.
Gotcha. It's really been obviously a major challenge, and continues to be. I was at lunch today, and I was at a diner, and they ran out of French fries. They couldn't get French fries over the weekend. So a cheeseburger joint with no French fries, but I understood. No problem. Give me onions.
Yeah, I think people in the restaurant industry get it, because we're all dealing with it. So the French fries are on a truck with no driver, or they don't have a picker, so they can't load the truck, or their French fries haven't even made it to the warehouse yet because they got stuck somewhere with the same issues. So supply chain is very overwhelming, and then you end up paying more for it too, because they're trying to make up for the whatever they have to do new to get things done.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and customers, I think understand as well, and they are a little more. Well, hopefully, we're all getting a little more patient and understanding of things like this, because it's not only in the food industry. We've got shortages all over the place. Go to the grocery store, you'll see that quickly, and I think everybody knows that. So
I think my concern and worry is about pricing. Labor went up quite a bit for us here in Washington State, and so it's a pretty big price tag. So you're looking at labor, and then you're looking at your cost of goods going up at the same time. And what price do you put on your sandwiches to still, at least make some money and not lose money? What do you do? And is your strategy a temporary hike, or is it a long-term hike that you're hoping the customers will be patient with? Or what do you do with that? That's the big conversation I think that each company is having internally right now on how they react to it and what will be still patience and understanding from the customers, as we try to maneuver the pathway we're on right now.
Yeah, very good point. And I just looked down at my clock and I realized it was a lot more time had passed than I thought. And every time I start talking to you, it just get going and going and going. And it's always great to hear from you and, to hear you share all the stories and all the experience that you've had. And just one thing leads to the next. And I'm sitting here thinking of other questions, and I realized I better get close to letting you get back to work at some point. But hey, for all of our listeners who are kind of getting into the game and getting into the restaurant space, opening their first restaurant, or maybe have one open but aren't seeing the success that they had hoped for, any particular words of wisdom or pieces of advice you would share with them to kind of help them get over the hump?
Well, for new people, I think it's very important to have operations and finance in your ownership partnership. With Lori and I, that's easy because she's finance all the way, and I had been operations since I was 18. So we had that, but I see a lot of people get into it with one of those pieces missing, and then they struggle. And you don't have to struggle. You just have to find a person to hire that brings in something that you don't bring in. None of us are so gifted that we bring everything to the table, all at once. So you need to surround yourself with people that meet the things that you're weaker on, to help you build your organization. So that would be what I'd say to newer people. For those existing, if you have your PPP loans or any of that stuff, look at how am I going to spend my money now that, we've pretty much gotten into a new phase of COVID. How am I going to spend my money? Is it going to be on remodels? Am I going to grow my business with that? Am I just going to pay for the bills I already have? What are my pressing needs? And I think really being honest with yourself and writing down a list of kind of like Lori did on after store one for Blazing Onion, writing a list of the things that are things that I need to really be working on right now. I really need my focus, and seeing if any of that money that you got can be used toward any of those things responsibly. And if they can be, then set out a plan that gets you to that next level. But be honest with yourself about what your shortcomings are and where you need work.
Yeah, a very difficult thing to do, but quite important to be able to overcome those challenges and find a way around them so that we can all grow and be more successful together. And I just thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You've got a ton on your plate between yourself and Lori and your team. And we appreciate you being willing to come on and share your ideas and thoughts with us here on the show today. So David Jones, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
And for all of our listeners, again, it's a Blazing Onion Restaurant Group out of Newcastle, Washington. And the website address for those listening and not watching on video is blazingonion.com. So pretty easy. You can hop on and check out their site, order online, go to one of their 8 locations. Again, the restaurant group that David and his wife Lori run have Subways, and also Big Chicken coming soon to a location near you in the Pacific Northwest. So we're excited about that and can't wait to kind of see how that journey, where that journey takes you, David. And again, thank you for being on with us.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a great day.
Thank you. And for all our listeners, we really appreciate you joining us for another episode of the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson, and good eating, my friends. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.